Because you don't. And when you realize that, that's when you make the decision that you're going to play your best. Because if you don't have it tomorrow. You don't get another 48 minutes. That's what we're here for. The pride, the tradition, the family. Yeah, about the guys in this room. Nothing else. 48 minutes for everybody who's here. Do you understand me?
Yes, Coach.
Do you understand me?
Yes, Coach.
Welcome back to Tell Us the Titles. I am your host, Brown DDP. You're watching a very special episode 21, P2P, the Green Wave edition. I got my co-host, Eric Ray, a.k.a. Boomer, on the side of me. How are we doing tonight?
I'm great, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well. We have two incredible guests below, Crissy, Froyd, and Maddy Hudak. Maddy's back again. She did New Orleans Saints. Hudak. I'm sorry. Hudak. That's right. I apologize. She's back. She did a New Orleans Saints off-season breakdown with us. How are you both doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Great. Can't complain. Maddy?
I'm doing good, too. It's a good week to be a Green Wave fan, so we're all in a good mood so far.
Something special for you?
My son.
Breaking the show with a little fight song, So tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll start with Crissy. How long you been covering Tulane, and are you a fan of Tulane, or it's just a job?
It's funny how this came about, to be honest with you. I mean, so I've been covering quarterbacks for about 4 years. I had a big focus on Michael Pratt, and then I'm not from Louisiana, spent a lot of time in Louisiana. So one of the local outlets contacted me to work for them. So I kind of split up Tulane, to be honest, about half and half between Sports Illustrated and the bigger prospects, and then Crescent City Sports, more the local guys. So I do local and national coverage of Tulane. It's been going on for about 6 months or so. So it's been an interesting ride, but I'm happy that I got on this team whenever I did.
Nice. Maddy, how about you?
Well, I am the sideline reporter, so that's kind of my easy affiliation to Tulane. I also cover the Saints, as we kind of went over already, which is less fun at this time than being the sideline reporter. And then I work as a consultant for a national scouting service. So I'm kind of just all over the place, and I'm on the broadcast crew for Tulane and an alumni. So happy homecoming.
I will say you had an epic photo that I saw where you were in the end zone on one of the wins. Yeah, who got closer? Was it you or the cheerleader? I think you won.
It may or may not have been this contact for why I'm wearing this. I'm not really sure if that's what had to do with it, but I had put my microphone on the ground, and then the guy was defensive back. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to roll over my equipment. So I kind of reached for it. And I think that's where things got a little hairy, but I'm usually up in the press box for the end of games. But because it was overtime, I got to be down there. So to be literally in bird's eye view of that was epic.
The picture was epic itself. I saw it on Twitter. It was great. All right, Jared, let's get into it. Let's break it on this big question you got here for him.
Well, first things first, I mean, top 25, right? I mean, it's cool to see it. It's the first time we've seen it since 1998 when they went 12-0. The biggest things, what does this mean for the Tulane program and for head coach Willie Fritz?
Yeah, well, just looking kind of at how history has gone alone, they went 8-5 in 2008, and they've had a losing record for 12 seasons until Curtis Johnson took over in 2012, which was actually my freshman year at Tulane, and my senior year was Willie Fritz's first year. So it was kind of cool to start that with him kind of incidentally. But, Tulane had been to 3 bowl games since 1998, and Willie Fritz has taken them to 3 in the last couple of years. But there's always been this perception of, Tulane is like a 6-7 win tops team. That's really where they're going. And I don't really see why there's any reason to think that anymore, especially when you look at last season. I always would use that as an argument to say that they're so much better than a 6-7 record. A lot of coaches I don't think would have the gall to clean the house the way that they did when Willie basically, got the entirely new coaching staff outside of a couple of the coordinators like Coach Hampton. But doing that, and you see his ability to make those hard decisions on the field too, like the 4th down call against Kansas State, where he just decided to win the game on the field. I think having those guts has really taken these guys through what was a really hard season for a lot of reasons, with the hurricane that I think went really under the radar because they weren't trying to focus on it. But as someone that was there with them, it was just kind of a downward spiral from there. And so to be at this point in the top 25 for the first time this century and be bowl eligible a week before they were eliminated from the postseason last year, and they have quality wins at this point. So I don't see any reason why they're not favored for a conference championship at this point. And should they make it there and make it to one of those greater bowl games, in terms of what this would mean, I think that would be legacy defining for both Coach Fritz and Tulane.
Nice. All right. Well, you mentioned it a little bit. Kansas State, right? That was a big win. Well, let's talk about the Kansas State win. How were the Green Wave able to pull off the 17-10 win against Adrian Martinez and the Wildcats? Crissy?
Yeah, I think a lot of that came down to some of Adrian Martinez's own mistakes. This is a quarterback that we've seen go up and down throughout history. But I think that it comes down to complementary football. This was not a very high-scoring game, but I thought that Tulane looked good on offense, and even more so, this passing defense that was ranked #1 in the nation for so long, still one of the best passing defenses in the nation, one of the best overall defenses in the nation. I think it's held steady. I think it had a big thing to do with that. I think this is the game that really put this team on the map on both sides of the ball. Like I said, not a high-scoring affair, but we saw what Tulane could do on the ground. We saw Michael Pratt's presence through the air, and then we saw just how stout this defense was on multiple levels. So statement win that I think served as some foreshadowing as to how the rest of the season was going to go and how it's gone to this point.
Jared, she mentioned Pratt. Just run with it.
Get straight to it. He just came off his 4-touchdown game versus South Florida. He's at 1,580 yards or 60 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 67% completion percentage is absolutely crazy right now, considering he was a 57% guy last year at this point. It's just kind of crazy. What kind of confidence do you have in him right now? Do you think the locker room is actually just riding this wave with him?
I'll let Crissy elaborate definitely more on the play style because she's the quarterback girl. But in terms of just from being there every single day for the last 2 years and what I saw them go through last season, the fact that they won a game in what was it, week 11 by an astounding margin when there was really no reason to play for that game at all at that point. That was all Michael Pratt. And the fact that this entire team stayed, that's really a very easy time with this transfer portal and NIL stuff going on to say, I'm going to get out while I can. This, team did not do anywhere close to what they expected this season. And I think, Michael Pratt staying, really everyone rallied around him. I think he's just such a leader on and off the field. You see it in those smaller moments too, like the game in Houston where he wasn't playing and, it's his birthday and that's a big game on national television. And it would be really easy to be in your head about that. But, when Justin Ibieta goes down in the opening series, Michael Pratt is right by his side. He was consoling him the whole game. He was sitting there with Kai Horton, hyping him up, running up and down the sideline and giving everyone high fives. So it's just really all those small moments, I think. And the fact that he's never tried to be the hero to the detriment of the team. Like Crissy brings up games like Kansas State, it was definitely a more conservative game plan. And there are a lot of quarterbacks that just want to air it out anyways. And I think you see his growth in his play come from just being honestly very mature for his age. The fact that he's only been playing football since 9th grade is really astonishing. And I think that it quite frankly is a better fit with the offensive coordinator this year. I think they have a better line of communication and there's better in-game adjustments that are being a little more tailored to, I think, the talent that this team has, emphasizing the run game, to a point as well. But all that together, I just think he's made such a massive leap from a season where, everything could have easily gone the complete opposite way.
We got a question from one of our locals. Did the teammates attend his birthday dinner?
That is a 12 out of 10.
Crissy, I know you're the QB one, so we'll talk a little bit about Pratt and what you think about him.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you go back through the preseason rankings, which I always do, the most underrated quarterback in the nation, it feels good to be right. And I think this is a quarterback who's proven me right up until this point. So in today's era, you look for a quarterback who is a true dual threat, but is first and foremost a polished passer. And I think like I mentioned before, whenever people ask me about this guy, is if quarterback evaluation was as deep as the numbers, and this is someone that you would pass over. But whenever you go through the all 22, whenever you go through the tape, and whenever you boil it down to upper body mechanics, lower body mechanics, mental processing, things like that, the things that matter, the things that actually make a quarterback accurate, this is a quarterback who has had it from the start of his college career, which is extremely impressive considering the fact that he was homeschooled and didn't start playing football until 9th grade. So I think that he's really always had the makings. I think that you're beginning to see that, because I want to go back to one of my points about mental processing, as people always ask me about how do you come to that conclusion. And it's really hard to pick apart whenever the supporting cast and the offensive line is not there. But it comes to light more whenever those guys are there. And so I think you're seeing just how quickly this game has slowed down for a player, even that didn't have a lot of experience at the beginning of it. And I think that kind of going back to the intangibles part that Maddy had mentioned before is, I mean, I've worked with over 100 quarterbacks at this point. It's not to be discounted whenever your team goes 2-10, your team still wants to rally around the quarterback. And every single person I talk to every day in practice that I've been out there, this is a quarterback that the team wants to play for. I know Will Hall said that if he had a son that was like Michael Pratt, that he will have succeeded. And so I think just between those two things, that this is a quarterback that's still flying a bit under the radar. Maybe if he had a different helmet sticker, he'd be a little bit more publicized, but I think that that's coming. And I think this back half of the season is something really to watch. He has set his single game passing yards record 3 times over this season, just really coming together on the deep ball and stuff like that.
Hey, real quick, you had a great article you just put out on Michael Pratt 4 days ago at SI.com. I just want to plug that real quick, so go check that out. So
it's fantastic. I will also plug it.
So it seems as though Michael Pratt is the face of Tulane, and they have all on board with Michael Pratt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that he's someone who represents the university well from a character and a player perspective, and I think that he's somebody who's helped the team garner a lot of just attention. I think that the defense has put the team on the map a lot. I think they deserve some attention, but I think that he's definitely one of just among the forward-facing figures of the Green Wave team.
Well, hopefully Michael Pratt can keep it rolling, keep the success going in the Green Wave, and get some more dubs. Jared, did you have something you want to say?
No, like I said, I just want real quick, who's your NFL comparison for Pratt?
I like it.
I pointed the wrong way.
Are we asking me?
Yes, yeah. You're the QB. You're the QB guru.
Well, I mean, I see a little bit of Josh Allen. I mean, every now and then he tries to be Sonic the Hedgehog. That's what I call him. That's my actual comparison. I think this is a quarterback that, honestly, though, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I see a lot of Joe Burrow in him. I do.
Nice.
I actually had someone make that comparison on radio earlier, so it's not.
I love that comparison, actually. Like, I really do. So.
Well, because I think that he's starting to use his mobility less in a way that is less reckless, I guess you could say. And is showing kind of those signs of that meteoric rise and then those improvements as a passer, just as Joe Burrow did. And I mean, I covered Joe Burrow extensively, worked with him on a personal level extensively the same way I do with this quarterback. So I see a lot of the same things.
Great.
Awesome. All right. I want to dive into junior running back Tajay Spears. He's got 96 attempts on the year, 463 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he's close to 5 yards per carry. He's been a great surprise to the Green Wave offense this year. He's 1 TD away from tying his rushing total from last year, and he's already got more receiving yards in 22 than he had last year. What does Spears mean to the Green Wave offense, and is he Robin to Pratt as Batman?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Oh, sorry. Go, Crissy. I'm sorry. I went the wrong way. You're right.
All right. Who's the first
question? We can both talk about Tajay.
There we go. There we go.
Conversation.
Well, we both love to talk about Tajay, so that is not a problem for us whatsoever. The first thing I love about Tajay is how humble he is and how personable he is. As one of my favorite players on the team that I met and that I've conversed with. But in today's era of the NFL, at running back, you have to be versatile. This is a running back that has shown that he can do absolutely everything. Amazing in the traditional role. You can use him on trick plays. He can throw a block for you. He can function out of the backfield. This is a guy, like I said, can do absolutely anything that is asked of him. Really broke things open against USF in a kind of a little bit of a down period during the game. So I think that he's a big momentum changer and a player that really does not garner enough attention as a potential NFL prospect, and not just a potential NFL prospect, but a guy that should at least go mid-round whenever he gets drafted.
I like it.
I mean, it's a good follow-up to the fact that, when we played Memphis last year, he set the 4th of all time, single game rushing record for Tulane, and Matt Forte has all top 3. So it's not bad company to be in at all. It was a year off of an ACL tear, but Crissy pointed to it first. Tajay, the person, is really what sticks out so much at first. When I came in last year, I came in kind of late, right at the start of training camp, and then we were all displaced in Birmingham, Alabama. So getting kind of, to start having relationships with players was a little hindered. And he was one of the first guys that I talk to regularly. He always comes over and says hi to the broadcast crew. And just, he won't take any credit when people are literally trying to push it on him, but he's just such a complete back in every way. And that's what Crissy said, when you're looking at that trajectory to the NFL, and not just to make it in there, but really thrive. When I am on the sideline, running back is really one of those visceral things that I feel like you just get a better feel for when you're right there. And that Memphis game last year, I felt like I was looking at Alvin Kamara, just his vision downfield, his ability to evade tackles. In the USF game, he's in midair and his legs are suddenly going one way and he's completely straightforward, but he's also been the leading receiver for 2 weeks running. At another point in the season, he was the one that won the game with Kai Horton in Houston. It was a perfect catch by him. That was the one that I was right there for, but he never misses an assignment. He's always there. Michael Pratt would probably have a lot more sacks on him if Tajay wasn't back there picking up key blocks. There was a really key conversion that Michael Pratt had made during the Kansas State game, and Tajay was downfield and really just blocks with power. So every player loves him. They bring him up unprompted in all of their media conferences. Just randomly, we all love Tajay Spears, and it's for a good reason, both in the play and in the person.
I happened to see an interview. I believe you shared it, where they talked about him playing with the crowd noise and everybody coming in for the game, and he was just like, "Yeah, it's great, and I want more noise is better for everybody." And someone said in the background, he's like, "And go get tickets at .com." He's great. He rides the wave. He seems like a very humble, genuine young man, and I hope the success continues to climb for him.
Oh, 100%. Also, it was our SID Jason's shout out for that, because that is the link to buying tickets. So, but yeah, he just looked like a kid in the candy shop. He's looking off to the side in that video, and he's actually just looking at the stadium, and it was really adorable to watch. So I hope that's really what people see and want to come see for the rest of the season.
Nice.
All right.
I think it's a great. I just really like the kid in general, so can't wait to see him in person. So, which is 2 weeks away from now. For me. So the biggest question here, can Tulane hold off Cincinnati and South Florida, which obviously we can see that. They already went one-on-one with South Florida. They've got that head-to-head now. Can they win the ACC championship? Do you think we talked about it early. Do you think they make the move to make that push past Tulsa in 2 weeks? And do they get by this week?
I mean, if you watched last year, I don't know why it seems that out of the question, because when you look at the games against Cincinnati and UCF last year, Kai Horton again was in there when Michael Pratt was out, and he broke his finger on the third play of the game, and that wasn't really discussed that much. So the fact that they were leading through half against Cincinnati when they frankly had no business being in that game, all things considered last year, but a lot of their losses last year were not that far off. They weren't complete blowouts all of the time, and that UCF one was very much like that. I think it might have been a 2-point loss, and they had a lot of those last year. And you think about how many players Cincinnati lost to the draft. You see Sauce Gardner doing incredible things in the NFL, and that's who Kai Horton with a broken finger is trying to get a pass off against last year. They don't have Desmond Ridder. They don't have a ton of their receivers. And Tulane, again, just their retention from last year, and it just feels like the momentum is so on their side in a way it doesn't feel like for really other teams in the conference at this point. So the question was, could they make it over the hump and win after a big game, because they fell to Southern Miss. And then they did that again with their third string quarterback in Houston. And then they followed that up with holding a team to 9 points that scored over 50 on them last year. And then when it came down to it, are they going to be able to pull off the bowl eligibility win? So I feel like it's time to take the training wheels off Tulane and really see them, as what they are, which I think is a strong conference threat.
Agreed.
Love it. Crissy, would you like to add a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think it's about time that we stop viewing Tulane as a team that's showed year-over-year improvement and view Tulane as a team that is one of the best in the nation, which is why the Green Wave are ranked at number 25 in the country, right behind my number 24 Mississippi State Bulldogs, who I cover right here in Starkville. So I think that this is a team that the only the toughest opponent remaining on the schedule is Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati has fallen short of the expectations this year, a very beatable team. And then outside of that, Memphis upcoming next on the schedule, always a wild card. Seth Hennigan, very good at quarterback over there. So I think between those two and then UCF, John Rice Plumlee absolutely lighting it up over there for the Knights. I think he's given them some new life, something to be very excited about. But I think Tulane has shown, despite some of the inconsistency with teams like Southern Miss, their only miss of the season, this is a team that can contend with anyone and has already put a lot of doubts to rest against teams that were double-digit overdogs over them this season. So I think that this is a team that can absolutely contend for a title.
It's time we put a little respect on Tulane's name. All right, everybody out there, put some respect on their name.
100%.
I got a question about Tulane linebacker Nick Anderson. He's been on a tear lately. He had 14 tackles versus Houston, 8 against ECU, and 7 last week against UCF.
USF.
What does Nick USF? I apologize. What does Nick mean to the Green Wave D? And can we get him a Senior Bowl invite? Jim Nagy, get him an invite. Get him in there.
Yeah, I've told Jim Nagy about some Tulane players I want to see in the showcase, so we'll see how much he listens to me. That's one of them. But anyway, I think that just on top of the fact that he led this team in tackles in the last game and has done so in other games this season, this is a player that is not only a leader physically on the field for Tulane, but is a moral leader, extremely well-spoken, extremely mature, someone that I like talking to in post-game press conferences. So I think that he's done a lot of good things to contribute to this defense being one of the best in the nation, has done a lot to contribute to this passing defense being one of the best in the nation as well. So really big impact player, kind of one of those, once again, under the radar players that's going to be a really good NFL prospect. And I'm looking forward to watching him develop. And I think that it's good that people are starting to take note of him right now because he's going to be a big name.
Matt, you got any thoughts on Nick?
Yeah, I do. I think when you think of like the 3 players that are really the pillar of Tulane, I think we've gone over 2 of them, and Michael Pratt and Tajay Spears. But Nick Anderson is perhaps like truly the heart and soul of this team. And last year, I think he was the reason this team didn't fall apart. Yes, they fell apart on the field, but they didn't fall apart off the field. So that's something I think also has been really underrated. A lot of teams would basically cannibalize each other at that point. When you can't win a single game, it's frustrating. The defense is blowing tackles. The offense can't get a first down. There's all of the makings of in-house fighting at that point. And Nick Anderson was always the one that was doing the post-game conferences with us after every single game if we needed him. I think his decision to come back for his final year is the reason that a lot of these players stay at Tulane, to be honest with you. I think that his leadership goes beyond college football, and you saw it really again in situations like the hurricane last year. Like there have been a lot of bigger than football situations that this team has had to go through that I've just seen in under 2 years time at this point. And everyone is always looking to Nick Anderson for guidance. He is the one getting people pumped up at halftime. He'll go talk to a player on the sideline that's feeling down about their play style. Like he really just is Tulane football to me, quite honestly. And I think that there is definitely a future for him in the NFL, especially in that kind of edge rusher role, which he's really excelling at this year. And they're putting him in that position to make those plays. And he's made quite a few of them already.
I think Nick's a dog, and I think Nick deserves a Senior Bowl invite. So Jim better get one out there for him. One of our people at Total Titles, George, he's got a question for you. Is if Tulane runs a table, what kind of bowl game do you think they will get, and what is their ceiling bowl-wise?
I mean, the Cotton Bowl has been tweeting at them quite a bit. Fact is, there's one G5 team that gets into that, New Year's 6, and I think it was James. It might have been Coastal Carolina that had been undefeated, and they lost last weekend. So it's all set back to one-loss G5 teams. And if Tulane wins out, then I don't see any reason that's not kind of the immediate thing. And I think that's the players see that now, and they can taste that that's a real possibility. And I think that is the ceiling.
Crissy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. New Year's 6 or bust at this point. I think this is a team that can absolutely achieve those heights. And if not, I think they're getting to at least a decent bowl game because, like I said, I see one loss at most on the rest of the schedule. And I really think this is a team that's going to run the table and win out, as whoever commented just said. So,
yes, I want them run the table, win out, get themselves in the Cotton Bowl, and get that respect that they deserve. I think we got one last question for you before we wrap this up. Jared, go ahead.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just thinking about Nick real quick. Because I was just gonna bring up the thing. I think Nick Anderson reminds me a lot like Nick Bolton, to be honest with you.
Ooh, my guy.
That's a good.
Both 4'5" guys, 230 pounds. Really shows his weight. He's just somebody that I keep thinking about when I see Nick play. So the biggest question is, watching all these realignments and everybody moving, what do we see for the future of the Green Wave? Do we see them staying put or setting themselves? Are they the new standard of the AAC, which I think they are?
I think that is likely the case, but also, again, everything's so shaken up right now, and there is zero possibility of that being a thing last season. And again, you just look how quickly things can change in college sports. I don't, if there's an opportunity to get on a bigger stage, if Tulane is able to sustain the success, Willie Fritz brought that up today in terms of talking about sustained support, and that comes with consistent winning. And Willie has been the most consistent in the century, but because of last year, that, kind of backslid to is Tulane ever going to surpass 6 or 7 wins? I think this is the year to do so. And I think you just keep building on that. They've already shown that they, again, can hang with the big dogs. They were a couple inches on 4th down away from beating Oklahoma in a game that was supposed to be at Yeoman Stadium, while, again, they were in Birmingham. They were hair drying their uniforms in a ballroom. They were using free weights from like a wellness center. They had nothing with them. And the fact that was such a close game, they beat Kansas State already. They're such a stronger team all around too. Like when you're just talking about Nick Anderson, I did just want to point out Kurt Hester as a strength and conditioning coach might have been the most key offseason hire. These guys are not the biggest team out there often. And that mattered last year, and it does not matter this year. Those 4 4th down stops against Kansas State, those were stuffs. And a lot of them, one of those stops was 2nd and 3rd string guys, and they're all just playing pound for pound, way above their weight class at this point. So size to me is the biggest discrepancy in conferences and why teams can't succeed, because the fact of the matter is when they played Ole Miss last year, they were straight out bullied, and it was kind of painful to watch and hear, because you can hear a lot when you're on the sideline and guys are getting hit like that. But it does not sound the same this year, and I think that's really the biggest thing other than sustained success is getting kind of that strong team going, and I think they're on their way.
Crissy, do you have any thoughts on the future of the Green Wave?
Yeah, I think as far as this season goes, the sky's the limit. As I mentioned, I think ceiling of 1 loss remaining on this schedule. And then I think whenever it comes to next year and sustained success, I mean, we look at last year and some of the games that this team came close within, like Oklahoma, in which, I mean, supporting cast offensive line is some things in the defense not up to par, but still a decent foundation there that has grown in a huge way this year. So it's going to depend as far as next year goes, and just as far as who returns, who comes back, what this team has left behind. But I think that as far as recruiting goes, you take a huge jump this year, a jump this team hasn't been able to make just in recent history. So I think things are looking up in just a lot of different aspects, both immediate future and then just on the horizon.
Awesome. I want to see the Green Wave just keep excelling, get higher in the top 25. Let's get them higher. I got one last question. Can each one of you give us a guy to look out for the rest of the way that hasn't been mentioned?
I can go Macon Clark at nickel. It's a strong tie between Lummy Young at safety and Macon Clark at nickel. I think they both offer so much, but Lummy is such a strong tackler, and I started to see him blitzing last week, and I just think the secondary, and again, the change that they made from last year where they were one of the worst pass defenses in the country too. As Crissy said before, they were leading the nation for a while. They were, I think, 7th in pass defense, or 4th in pass defense before last week, 7th in points allowed, and they were just getting eat live in coverage last year, and that's not the case this year. But Macon Clark, he was playing safety last year, and it's not just, okay, we'll go play slot nickel now. It's a completely different position. It's a completely different skill set and responsibilities. And his blitzing is there. His energy is kind of reminiscent of CJ Gardner-Johnson to me. Like, he just has that juice. And now that I think he's kind of starting to see those lanes at that role, I would definitely look for a lot of those players on the secondary. And quite frankly, have a case for all of them.
Crissy, you got one for us?
Well, since she took mine and chose to go defense, I'll go offense. So if we want to get really deep here, I think that Dejan McDougal has shown a lot of potential, a really good route runner. I had some really good routes that he ran in this last game. A guy that's still going to take a little bit of time to develop. Maryland transfer Iverson Celestine as well within that threesome of running backs did a really good job. Doesn't get a lot of credit for what he does, but I think that running back core is super deep, has done a lot of really good things. Tajay Spears gets a lot of the credit as he deserves. But Celestine's certainly a guy to watch moving forward as well.
Awesome. So there's 3 names to look out for the rest of the way. Jared, you got anything else you want to ask these lovely ladies?
I will. So, Maddy, you're going to be in Tulsa in 2 weeks, November 5th. I will be there, so I will try to come to you. Obviously, you guys both threw jabs at Oklahoma. I'm an alumni. We won that game, but we shouldn't have won that game. So,
we talked about Spencer Rattler.
Huh?
Got real good at South Carolina, didn't he?
I mean, have fun, Spence. Like, I appreciate you. I gave him an Xbox a long time ago. So there's that. But before I was at OU, so when I was in the Navy a long time ago. So again, can't wait to see you guys in November 5th. I don't think I'm gonna be able to see Mississippi State live. I thought they were coming to Arkansas this year, but they played at Mississippi State this year. So, but next year.
Here in a couple of weeks, we'll want to see if you do want to see him live. So,
all right, sounds good.
You will want to see the Green Wave in Tulsa, though. So we'll see.
I'm a huge fan of Rogers. Like, I've been on the Rogers train for 2 years. So,
as his agent tweeted out before the season, I was the first one on the Rogers train. So whenever people try to copy me on that, just like everything else,
there you go, flex for him.
Did it?
Xavier Collins is no longer on that team. So,
real quick before we wrap up the show, I would like each one of you to plug yourself. Let the fans know where they can find you and where they can find your work. Chris, you can lead it off.
All right. Well, I'm the lead quarterback draft analyst on the NFL draft site on Sports Illustrated, formerly of NBC. Cover Mississippi State for Sports Illustrated as well. So that's pretty much what I do the majority of stuff for, and then Saturday Down South on SEC coverage.
Awesome. Maddy?
Well, you can catch us on 104.1 The Spot, although we might be getting expanded coverage now for the Green Wave broadcast games, where myself, Corey Glore, and Steve Barrios are your broadcast crew for that. I cover the Saints for USA Today's The Saints Wire, and I also do weekly film study segments with ESPN Baton Rouge on the Saints as well. So it's kind of all over the place. I always say the best place to find everything for sports people is on Twitter.
Awesome. Jared, do you have anything else that you wanted to ask them?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate both of you. I know you guys have busy schedules, so thanks for coming on, and let's go Green Wave.
Roll Wave. No, but thank you guys, because a lot of people, like we said, aren't talking about Tulane enough. So it's honestly a pleasure to be able
We're here to represent.
That's it. We get the respect. Get the respect on their name. Get Michael Pratt some respect, and Tajay Spears as well. You guys have a good night. Thank you very much. That's enough. That's episode 21 for P2P. Good night.